September 22nd, 2020 City Council meeting and call us to order and ask the city recorder to do a roll call.
Councilor Drapkin. Councilor Garvin.
Here.
Councilor Geary.
Hello.
Councilor Stassens.
How do I follow that? Here. That sexy hello.
Councilor Peralta.
Here.
Council President Minke. And Mayor Hill.
Here. And then as Remy comes on and as Kelly comes on, they were both a part of our level 10. We'll recognize that for the record. Again, thank you for all that are part of the proceedings and those that will be watching the proceedings at a later time. We're going to start this evening with two proclamations, and I'm very excited about both of these. Our first proclamation is Make Day and National Manufacturing Day, and we've got Scott Cooper, who's Executive Director of MEDP, on the line. So I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation, and then we'll have an opportunity to hear from Scott accept this. The proclamation: whereas manufacturing and traded sector companies make a very significant contribution to the national, state, and local economies, and whereas our community is fortunate to be the home of over 90 world-class manufacturing and traded sector companies featuring a multitude of products made in McMinnville, and whereas those companies add to the vitality and prosperity of our community by employing over 4,000 people with a 236 million average annual payroll. Therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim October 2nd, 2020 as McMinnville Make Day in conjunction with the National Manufacturing Day. And in witness thereof, I have herefore set my hand and created the official seal of the city of McMinnville to be affixed this, the 22nd day of September 2020. Signed, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of McMinnville. Scott, I'd like to recognize the good work that MEDP is putting together along with other partners. So would you like to address the council?
Thank you, Mayor. Certainly, there's no doubt on the impact of the manufacturing sector and traded sector economy in McMinnville. It's been tremendous for many years. It's nice to have a day that we can recognize their efforts, and I will I'd like to assure you that we will continue to recognize and celebrate manufacturing and traded sector every day of the year. But it's nice to have a single one to put out there. And I'd certainly like to thank you, Mayor Hill, and to all of the council members for your continued support and efforts. It really does take everybody's involvement in this to make it successful. So I can't thank you all enough, and we're really proud to be a part of helping the manufacturing and traded sector economy in McMinnville. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. And again, we'll get a signed copy over to your office so that you can have that. Scott and I and John Dietz we meet on a monthly basis, and I'm just amazed what kind of interest we still have going in our manufacturing and traded sector within this community, given the COVID. This is a great place to be, and the community supports those arenas. And so again, thank you, Scott, for the leadership, and thank your staff too, because sometimes we don't give them enough credit for what they do. So again, thank you. Our next proclamation today is going to be the National Lieutenex Heritage Month, and we've got our Human Resources Manager Kylie Beyer on the line to represent this. And so I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Designation of September 15th through October 15th as Latinx Heritage Month, whereas National Latinx Heritage Month celebrates the Latinx community and highlights its countless achievements, and whereas the observation began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon B. Johnson and was enacted into federal law on August 17th, 1988, calling upon the people of the United States to observe this time with ceremonies, activities, and programs. And whereas many Latinx Americans trace their roots to the cultures of the indigenous peoples of the America, including the Arawak, the Aztec, Inca, Mayan, and the Tanzao, and trace their roots to ancestors from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central and South America, and Africa. And whereas September 15th through October 15th is recognized as National Hispanic Heritage Month, a time to honor and to celebrate the invaluable ways Latinx contribute to McMinnville's common goals, to celebrate a diverse Latinx culture, and to work together towards a stronger and more inclusive society for all. And whereas the September 15th is significant as a starting date for the Latinx Heritage Month because it is the anniversary of independence for Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, Chile, celebrate their independence on the 16th and 18th respectively. And whereas Latinx are a significant part of McMinnville's population and influence in the fabric of our community with contributions to McMinnville's art, businesses, restaurants, civic leadership, education, and overall culture. And therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim the period between September 15th and October 15th, 2020, as Latinx Heritage Month. In witness thereof, I have hereto set my hand this the 22nd day of September in the year 2020. Signed, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of McMinnville. Kaylee, we recognize this proclamation and would ask some words from you.
Definitely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as I mentioned in June, to introduce the Pride Month proclamation, it is imperative that our city leaders ensure that all members of our community are valued and welcome. Latinx individuals make significant contributions to the McMinnville community, as you read in the proclamation, in all aspects of our city, from our arts to businesses to local leadership and education and so much more. National Hispanic Heritage Month was first formally recognized by President Lyndon B. Johnson back in 1968 and enacted into law in 1988. But the societal contributions from Latinx people began long, long before in the various tribes and indigenous communities that you mentioned in the proclamation. This proclamation is particularly timely for our city, especially as we advance our initiatives in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I thank you for making the proclamation tonight, and I'm excited that we are starting to recognize more diverse groups in this way in the city of McMinnville. So thank you.
Thank you, Kylie. That takes us to comments from citizens, and this is the time where we have individuals that would like to speak on any topic other than a matter that is in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter that is scheduled for public hearing at some future date. We limit those comments to 3 minutes per person. If you wish to speak, use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and request to speak to the council. When you have that opportunity, state your name, unmute your mic, state your name, and you'll have an opportunity to speak to the council. So Claudia, I'll see if you are aware of anyone that would like to come before the council this evening.
Yes, Mayor. Also want to state that Council President Minke and Councilor Dravkin are now on Zoom. Our first speaker is Mark Davis.
Mark, it's good to have you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Mark Davis, 652 Southeast Washington Street for the record. I'd like to comment on the increased use of work sessions for covering council business. I understand in this COVID era that we have these online things, and I'm sort of okay with that. But I think the work sessions have kind of moved beyond where they used to be as presentations of information and discussion into actually conducting council business and making decisions. I'm particularly concerned about the UGB work sessions in which, we reach a point where you're talking about decision points. I mean, there's not a formal motion, but clearly the council is being polled and, a decision is being made that's driving forward the UGB process. I'm sure everyone knows that Goal 1 in Oregon's land use system is public participation, and the work session setting just does not allow the public to participate. At the last work session, the mayor even lamented that he couldn't, get a comment from MEDP or MIP regarding one of the issues that were raised there. And, I think it would be great to hear from both of them. I mean, they should be able to be heard and other people should be heard. I'm concerned that there's private conversations going on in the background between interested parties, because I know from my participation last time when we were having these hearings about the land being brought in the city, that was what the public really cared about. The numbers and other things that were involved, people didn't have a lot of opinions about. But the which land is going to be brought in not only has financial implications for certain citizens, but it also affects, how people perceive the city. And I think people have opinions on that and they should be heard. I understand that, apparently at the next meeting you're going to have with the Board of Commissioners, there's going to be a chance for public input. And I think that's a great idea. But, and I appreciate that staff is trying to be objective. But, I just feel like there needs to be a chance for the public to address these issues as we go along. I fear when we get to the official hearing at the end of this process that there's going to be decisions have already been made, and it's going to be very hard to go back and say, well, maybe that decision on the hazardous lands was incorrect, and now we need to revisit it and start over again. I mean, that just doesn't seem very practical to me, and I think we should be hearing from people. I want to be clear as I close that I'm only speaking on behalf of myself, not any land use group. But I have been generally supportive of the staff's work on this issue and even the council's decisions. I don't really have a problem with what's going on. Hopefully at the end we'll get to see all the numbers and we get to comment. But I just think that along the way you should be asking the public for any thoughts that they have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, for that discussion and keeping us aware of your feelings on that. Let's see, Claudia, anyone else would like to address the council this evening?
Yes, we have Chris Chenoweth.
Thank you. Chris, go ahead and unmute yourself and address the council. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
We can.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. First off, a little bit of paperwork to take care of. I noticed Wendy moved your vote 10 to vote 6 instead of vote 5.
And I saw that you mentioned that to me, so Wendy can address that. Yes.
Pass that along. And then I also wanted to I know that level 10 was not about getting into the meat of issues. And I noticed that Councilor Peralta was kind of struggling along, wanting to say that the definite view of a lot of members of the community, and I think even with what Mark already said, is there's this perception that there's a rubber stamping going on. And I appreciate Sal, he was biting his tongue on that, but the reality is that perception exists. So as you go through this level 10 process, I would encourage you from a citizen's point of view to bring that up in a very high level of your conversation, and or at least keeping that in mind, that view exists, and how do you counteract that view, so that the people feel like they actually are seeing real deliberative decision making going on. So I wanted to encourage that, and then I also wanted to say that I felt like I was glad I got to sit in on that, and I'm kind of disappointed that more candidates weren't in that discussion, because we're getting ready for a potential transition, and whatever is decided in the next month, some of you may or may not be there to actually implement. So I have some concerns about how that's all transition is going to take place, and keeping with what you're trying to put in place. Maybe there's a way to include potential candidates in the process so that they sign off on it, because if you get their buy-in, you're going to have a much better opportunity to keep them involved in that process than if they don't have their buy-in. They walk in on January 1st and they didn't agree to any of this. So just my 2 cents worth of some thoughts and some ideas that might be helpful going forward. Thank you. And again, thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Claudia, anyone else?
No, Mayor.
Okay. That will take us to our next item on the agenda this evening, which is a presentation by the McMinnville Downtown Association, the MDA, and it's their annual update. And so I'll call on Dave Ruckless, our Executive Director of the MDA, and also recognize that he has members from his board that are on the line, and Dave can introduce those individuals so the council would know who's representing the MDA on the call also. So Dave, welcome.
Hi, I'm Heather, not Dave, but
Okay.
I'm gonna get things started as the MDA president and kind of bring everybody up to date from the last time we spoke with you back in August of 2019. I wanna thank you, Mayor Hill and councilors, for having us here tonight. We do have a couple of other board members in the room with us. Kent Taylor and Danny Chisholm are also here along with Dave. And then we have several viewing in from home as well. So thank you all. So like I said, the last time we sat in front of you was in August of 2019. At this point now, that seems like such a simpler time. At that time, we had successfully executed our entire summer event season without an executive director. As some of you remember, we lost our executive director in April of 2019, and we're not in a position to go out to rehire, and instead really focused internally to keep our summer events, which are a huge part of what the MDA contributes downtown, running. And we did a pretty good job of doing that very seamlessly, thanks to our board of directors, our committed staff, as well as many community volunteers. Following our event season, our board of directors really focused on our internal structure of our organization. So in the fall of that year, we reached out to the Oregon Main Street organization to complete a program evaluation. So this required our staff and board members to compile years of data about our organization and then conduct interviews over a multi-day kind of session. So it included our board members, committee members, our staff, as well as community members. The counselors, you have that entire report in your packet for reference. Basically, in summation, I'm being bad about clicking through our little things. So this is our local program evaluation. The words that you see there are words that came from our community survey about what people thought about when they thought about downtown McMinnville. So that was kind of interesting. The larger words were brought up more often, smaller words were least often, just for reference. Overall, the MDA is very much associated with McMinnville being a vibrant and wonderful place for business. So going 30 plus years, we are attributed to the success and growth of downtown McMinnville. We also were really looking for the things we needed to improve on. So the next part is going to be our priorities for improvement based on the feedback we received from Oregon Main Street. Identity crisis, who are we as an organization? Are we just an events organization? Are we a business organization? What is our role in downtown, essentially? Lack of leadership and staff turnover. Over the past few years, we have had several different executive directors as well as staff within our office with a relatively high turnover rate, not in comparison to other or other Main Street organizations specifically. And that creates a difficult situation for us in connecting with our peers in the community. Program evaluation, so evaluating all of our events if they are serving a valuable purpose for our organization and the downtown. And those programs are not limited to just our events, but also our hanging baskets, the banners, keeping downtown clean. How do all those things fit into our organization as a whole? And then organizational sustainability, so our financial sustainability and moving downtown forward. We do own the Cozine House, which while is a great asset, it also requires upkeep and maintenance. So in order for us to continue in the situation we are with our staff and our assets and also doing what we are meant to do for downtown. So our first mission was to tackle our identity crisis. So we set aside a group of our board members, our organization committee, to use our mission to create very specific value statements that we would then use internally to direct our decision-making process. Some of the feedback we received from Oregon Main Street and the community was that our decision-making was not consistent across the board. So using these values, integrity, sustainable, communicative, welcoming, and friendly, and then purposeful, help us to guide what we do going forward as an organization. We also took the advice of Oregon Main Street to return to the 4 pillars of Main Street. So this is a national program that has proved very functional and effective for both McMinnville historically, but also on a national level. So our committees and our work is broken down into organization, promotion, design, and economic vitality. So we restructured our committees to go back into these 4 distinct categories, and we place board members as either chairs or co-chairs to ensure that all the information from those committees and work groups flows back up through one channel to both our board and our staff. Next up on our list was to hire an executive director. We've relied heavily on our newly created value statements to determine what our organization needed. We also relied heavily on the feedback we received from community members within the city at MADP, Visit McMinnville, as well as the Chamber, as what they expected from our organization in order for all of us to work strongly together. So we revamped our budget based on those recommendations and feedback, and then we placed ourselves in a really good position to enter the hiring market with a new job description that was focused on our ability to retain a solid leader and hopefully a sustainable future for the organization. So just about a week prior to our annual dinner, we did hire a great executive director, and you're gonna meet him in just a couple minutes and he'll talk to you. But our annual dinner was again thrown primarily by just a very slim staff, our board of directors and our volunteers. And it was one of, if you were not there, one of the most successful and feel-good events I've attended in a long time. We celebrated in true downtown fashion by hosting our family in McMinnville's living room. The evening was overwhelming. I was proud of all that we had accomplished in the past year, but also thankful for the leadership before me and hopeful for growth and success in the years to come. So as you can see, we raised $13,000 for the MDA. We had 161 attendees, and we honored 19 local businesses. I think that's all I have, and I'm going to turn it over to Dave. I will say that when we hired Dave, we had really strong plans in place for a great onboarding process. We set up an onboarding committee to properly introduce Dave to the community and to our business members, stakeholders, and partners through individual meetings, coffee talks, and industry-specific roundtable discussions. Unfortunately, just a couple weeks later, we were hit with something completely unexpected, but I will say that Dave was the absolute perfect person to have in that position when COVID hit us. He has been amazing at keeping up sort of our onboarding goals just by hitting the ground running and going out and meeting people. So I'm going to turn it over to Dave so he can talk about what he has done in the last 6 months, or the first 6 months of his position, and then I will be returning for any questions.
Hi, council, mayor, staff. I'm going to take off my mask here momentarily. I'm a little loud. I got a projective voice. I want you to look at that picture. Doesn't look like the guy sitting probably in front of you right now. That's what 6 months at the MDA will do to you. It's been a journey, to say the least, and continues to be such. Do we have the advance? Here we go. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Anyway, I come from a background of being in business myself. I originally started my career out of college as a downtown director in Sandpoint, Idaho. And so I did get a taste of it for many, many years ago. And in the meantime, in between, I've been in a lot of different roles, which were mostly, if not all, business related. Anyway, I'll try to move through this without boring you too much. Some of you have sat through some of my Rotary presentations, and I hate to duplicate some of that, but I came on board, and the first week I met with, Heather introduced me to Jeff Towery. And we sat in his office. It was kind of a meet and greet. We wanted to kind of get around and meet some of the significant stakeholders in the community. And within, part of our conversation was Jeff asked, so, are you going to that restaurant meeting this weekend? And I go, I got invited to it, I suppose. And Jeff said he was going to go. And I said, okay, I'll attend. And it was a Saturday night, and it was held after hours. And at the Atticus, where about 30 restaurant and beverage owners gathered in the Atticus meeting room, 30 of us. And you can imagine thinking back then, the whole thing just didn't seem right really when we sat in there like sardines. But we did that, and we discussed what we saw ahead. And I don't think anybody at that point really knew completely what it was going to look like, but there was certainly a lot of concern. 2 days later, we have state mandated restrictions, which completely changed the game in how we were going to go about, dealing with things going forward. I mean, I came into the job thinking this was very event driven. Yes, there was a need for a reach out to the constituency, but it really kind of threw things way off balance. And all of a sudden, we had to come up with some plans that we didn't think we were going to necessarily have to take up. So one of the first things I thought of, and was backed up by our board, was that we need to communicate with our membership. And so we started something we called the Daily. It became the Daily. We never called it that in the beginning, but it was just a daily correspondence with everybody to just kind of share what was going on downtown. Because you got to remember, at that point, nobody was there. It was empty at that point. There was no stores open. And I would walk up and down 3rd Street in particular on a daily basis, just kind of observing what was going on. And we kind of took a fireside chat. Now that may date me a little and be beyond some, but when you remember back to World War II and FDR, and I wasn't alive then, but he used to take the approach of just talking to people and letting them know what was going on you know, with things, and also trying to provide some sense of comfort and stability and hope. And that's what we started to do. And in doing that, and we did it on a daily basis for upwards of 3 months, I think we connected with the membership. And in doing that also, hopefully made them feel a little bit more comfortable with what was obviously a dire situation, because there was obviously a lack of revenue and so forth. We found that over 50% of our membership was reading this, so that made us feel good. That's a pretty good rate. And that led to the next step, and I'll share with you as I go through, because I'm kind of the survey. This came about because Main Street America shared with Main Street Oregon this survey format to be used in their communities for Main Street America. But what we did is we kind of took it and mirrored it and made it our own personal survey. And what that did is it provided information that was, to this date, it was probably the best information we could have ever gathered. We found out things like 2/3 of those responding of those, and we had a huge response rate. 2/3 of those were retail, food and beverage and accommodation businesses. So we got to the core. 66% of the people responding to the MDA survey downtown were part of those industries. 55% of those people have been in business 10 years. That's kind of unheard of, to see that kind of longevity in the business community, especially independent business community. We found that 80% were locally owned, and this is important, right? And we found that 51% were owned by women. Half of our downtown businesses are owned by women. Great statistic, and you'll know why when we talk about grants and so forth. A lot of our businesses were 2 to 5 employees, but we also had 18% of our businesses responding said they had 20 or more employees, which, you know, leads to the accommodation restaurant business. 85% of those people, though, when we did that survey, had suspended business and estimated that their revenue would be impacted by 70%, 75% or greater. So that just kind of gives you a picture of what it looked like down there in the early months of the pandemic. I mean, it was serious, and it continues to be serious, but when you look at it from that, you go, wow, are we gonna even survive this? The next thing we did is we kind of went to, okay, we're gonna have to start thinking about how we're gonna react, and especially when people start to reopen, because obviously that was gonna happen. And we started what I call our safe environment. What we did is we ended up creating a poster that we hand-delivered literally to 120 businesses, just to make it consistent with our membership that staying safe in McMinnville was about social distancing, it was about wearing a mask, it was about washing your hands, it was about staying home if you were sick. And then I said, as I walked up and down 3rd Street all those days, I went, you know what, these sidewalks really need to be cleaned. So we took on the idea, with your assistance, with your public works assistance in terms of equipment, we started basically power washing sidewalks up and down 3rd Street in particular, knowing that we were gonna have another initiative on board. And it just gave people a feeling of confidence that, you know, we were doing our part to make it a safe environment. And then finally, we put in a grant with, in conjunction with MURAG for sanitation stations through the Oregon Community Foundation. We have yet to hear back on that, although we have followed up many times. They still say they're backlogged and aren't able to rule on it yet. But you can see on the right, the idea was kind of taking the kind of the thing you see in a hospital when you enter, taking that kind of station, maybe making it a little bit more adaptable to our businesses, but allowing them to have that for customers that enter and so forth. So we're still working on that. We haven't gotten it yet. We'll see how that goes, but I still think, given the long haul here, it's still a very viable kind of thing to have available to our business community. All of a sudden, we're like, okay, events. We have farmers market coming up. And so we looked around to other communities and we saw that it seemed to be considered an essential service. So we went forward with our farmers market. So we set it up like a normal one, got it all ready to go. And then it was like, no, that's not going to work. So we pivoted, and I give my assistant, Chloe Rash, all the credit, to a drive-through market where we actually used an app so people could order online from our vendors, and then they could come and pick up their goods centrally at the city council garage, which is where we set up on the driveway there. Worked out to be several weeks of just over 110, 120 orders per week. It was a great alternative. And then when it became clear that we could make it happen in person, we ended up dispersing all of our vendors so that we got 6 feet between all of them and made it a more safe market when it went live. And we were very grateful to the Baptist church next door. They gave us our parking lot to expand into. And it allowed us to, I think, put on a safe market. And with signage, appropriate signage to encourage social distancing, to encourage masking, I think we've conducted, what I consider to be, just, I don't know, it was as good as it could get given the circumstances. We also were able to offer a new program that year that was called Double Up Food Bucks. And Double Up Food Bucks, there we go, there it is. Double Up Food Bucks was a grant we got. We were able to give out and match $10 for the first $10 of purchased EBT money for those that were in need. And those $10 we gave could only be used on vegetables and fruits and nuts. So we were providing a healthy food network for the area community who shopped at the farmers market. And that was just that ended up being a really positive thing, and people were very appreciative of it, rather shocked by it because they couldn't believe they were going to get an extra $10 that way. And that became very helpful too, because as many know, with the schools in the condition they were and everything else, it was very helpful to be able to provide families with extra food. And then came the big initiative. Obviously, we became aware as early as that first restaurant meeting that there was going to be a problem with a 50% reduction in basically table space in a restaurant. All of a sudden, we have to, try to do business that way. And if anyone is in business, they know if you reduce your business footprint 50%, it basically means your revenues reduce 50%. And how do you make things work? And so we took the initiative before anyone else in this state, and I can say that rather confidently, maybe a few important got by, but we ended up going to the OLCC, we ended up going to various governmental agencies and petitioning for the ability to, at that point, the name spill out onto the street, giving them a footprint that would allow them to do the type of business that would hopefully make up for the business that they would have lost. And it has been, if you haven't participated, this will be the last weekend coming up. It has been an overwhelming success. I have to give kudos to the city of McMinnville, to your staff, all the way across, police, fire, public works, city management. Everybody came on board. Everybody helped us do this. And it made for what I consider to be one of the more greater experiences you could have. We've received nothing but positive feedback. Some restaurants are reporting numbers this year as good as they were last year. And so by making that initiative, I think that we really helped not necessarily save the restaurant industry, but certainly bolster it in a time of need. And it's something that McMinnville and the city of McMinnville can certainly be proud of. Next thing, before I get to the culmination of this all, is our membership. The board had made a decision not to bill our membership until we got a executive director on board, which totally understandable. Problem was, we didn't get an executive director once he came on board. A week later, we had the COVID virus. So you can only imagine what that meant. It really, we revised our budgets drastically, like 25% reduction. We just did not, we recognized that this was going to be a difficult year. But lo and behold, whether it be due to our efforts, whatever it may be, we've received almost 93% of our 2020 goal. And a lot of those people that are part of our membership aren't even in our downtown core. 40% of those people are outside the core. They're just supporting the downtown. They recognize the importance of it. As we go forward, the current initiatives we're trying to put forward, obviously you're probably aware of the MURAC facade improvement grant. Right now we have had, 14 of 18 grants approved. We've have 21 grants totally submitted. A lot of those are downtown. They're fantastic. The program is working great. You're gonna see some really exciting projects over the next 6 to 12 months downtown that are gonna make things look better and better. And we're very grateful to be able to be a part of that program. We looked at our banners downtown, as you see on the light post. We just put up the new Linfield banners for the university, Linfield University as opposed to college. We're very excited to be able to do that change out. We're going to be doing another change out here soon to give them a fresh look. We just contracted with C&D Lighting to do twinkle light maintenance. So those are going to be looked at and repaired if need be. And then last thing there, the gift card sales. Last year we hit, I think, 36,000 total or so in sales. This year we're already at 38 and we haven't hit fourth quarter. Fourth quarter is our biggest quarter. We expect to be well over $50,000 in gift card sales. All of that money goes right back into the downtown. I want to thank some of the city departments, namely Parks and Rec and Library. We've also had great support from the school district and other people, but it's nice to see people look toward us and say, let's put the money back into us downtown and to our business community. So that's been really great. I think, like I said, the last slide I hear is I say the future is now. It is now, in that we're facing a very, very challenging and difficult situation coming forward. Obviously, every community will see their fatalities, so to speak, people that aren't able to get through this, and we're trying to do everything we can to minimize that. When I looked at the MacTown 2032 Economic Development Strategic Plan, something you guys participated in, my biggest takeaway, because I was strictly looking for things relative to the downtown, was it said, make downtown the best it can be. And I look at the downtown and I call it McMinnville's product. And I look at the MDA and I say, we are the manager of the product. And to me, it is, without a doubt, the most important asset that we have in the community. It's critical to attracting tourism. It's critical to attracting, as much as anything, industry, because of the assets that are down there that are available to those that may employ employees and so forth as they move their business here. I do have to say something on the negative side, though, and it's just the way it is. The MDA is financially unable to act on a lot of suggestions that we have in that report. We just don't have the financial budget. I like to say when I'm in the stable table meetings, I'm the cheap date. I'm the one at the table that has the least amount. And I think there's some confusion about that. I think some people here in the community may look at the MDA and think it's a cash cow. Well, it's not. It's strictly not. I'm free to admit that. It runs on a very narrow budget, and it does everything it can with its assets to do as much as it can. So it's very important for the city of McMinnville and the MDA to work together to accomplish the goals that you have in that 2032 economic report. And I think it's very important that we're your eyes on the ground. We see what's needed. We know what needs to be addressed. And if we're able to participate in your budgetary process to make you aware of those needs It's hoped that you can consider those annually without necessarily having to be the director of the project. We're here. We are ready to help you implement those projects and help enhance what I call the downtown product. And we want you to know that we are here to work with you. It's part of the statement also made in 2032 was the city and the business community having a better relationship. And I can tell you right now, we have a good relationship, and it's getting better all the time. And so I leave you with the statement I wrote out at the end today. I said, the more you can help us to help you, the greater the downtown product can be. And so as we move forward, definitely keep us in mind. We're here to work with you. We want to make things work. We want to make things better. And we want to know that we're a partner of yours. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions as we had an opportunity to look at their annual report from the council? And Heather, you can come back up and there we go. Any questions from councilors? Go ahead, Zach.
Thank you for the report. Some other comments, but I can keep it to questions if we want to clip through questions. Sort of to dovetail at the very end of your report, which was fantastic. What are your highest priority items, sort of your capital improvement project list that could best help, the downtown association? I share your passion and love for, as you frame it, the product, and think it's super important. How many stories have we all told or heard of what we had to do is get them close to downtown, and the magic just sucked them in, and we got them, and the charm was there, right? What are the top things that we can help with, or that you need help, or what is the organization identified as their top objectives for improving the downtown?
Well, I think all of you are aware that we have on the horizon this streetscape project, right? I personally look at it right now and I go, I'm not sure of the timeline now. I mean, we're all facing things at a municipal, a county, a state, a federal level that we've never faced before. And it's hard to judge what the financial impact of that is going to be, which makes it kind of, when I look at things right now, I go, so what investments can we make right now to keep us where we're at and even enhance where we're at, knowing that those things could be changed rather drastically in 3 to 5 or so years. So it's the simple things, it's the maintenance things that need to be done down there, from the trimming of the trees that are in need of maintenance that way, to the removal of dead trees and tree wells that obviously, to the critical eye, they're very important. To obviously, there's nothing we can do necessarily about our sidewalks until we move forward on a bigger initiative. But those kind of things, the wayfinding ideas that we're sharing right now, of maybe transforming our kiosk into something more than the sitting benches, since so many of our retailers have benches out front now, maybe we can put in things in those areas that allow people to navigate our downtown. So there's a series of things that are constantly coming up. We're working right now on trying to raise money to increase or expand our Christmas or holiday experience downtown, because we would like to promote that to the regional area as McMinnville is a place to go to shop and eat and experience the holiday season. So those are the types of enhancements, and they're not super expensive. They're just not, these aren't big budgetary items, but they are rather large to us in, as you can imagine, we lost all our events this year. All of those potential fundraising opportunities were gone. And so time you can consider what I consider to be small projects that will enhance our downtown as we transition toward the future, those are the kinds of things that are going to be hugely meaningful, because they're going to make people that are both our residents and those that are coming from outside experience the downtown in a better way. So that would be my answer today.
Where would you put, I noticed in the, thank you for tying it also to the strategic plan. I noticed in there, in the specific on the strategic plan, we talk about wayfinding as an action in there. Where are you guys at on wayfinding? I know there was sort of a collective bigger effort the MDA plays a part of. Where are you guys at on wayfinding and signage?
Go ahead.
I mean, most of that was stalled, except for Visit McMinnville kind of coming out and doing their temporary wayfinding this season. That is not permanent, but at least gives us some direction as what we can do going forward. I think that the kiosks could be a potential wayfinding kind of hub for people to figure out how to navigate themselves to Linfield and the Granary, and then having those spaces in those areas as well, directing back to the downtown. We're growing enough that we have these kind of separate little areas that have distinct identities, and how do we get people to travel to all of them, especially while they're here visiting or to new community members. So those were kind of our conversations, primarily with Visit McMinnville, going forward. And that's, I think it is really valuable as we start to build upon our industry and business in those other areas that are outside of downtown. How do we make sure people experience all of that while they're in McMinnville?
Yeah, I know as I've gone to other communities in Oregon, none of which hold a candle to the McMinnville downtown. But, you know, the Grants Passes, the Corvalises, the other ones, even the ones on our comparable cities list, just the downtown signage they have of here's where you are and here's all the little things. And I know we have the one light post with the hands that point to the fire department and the hospital, but to have the modern one that gets people to where they need to go for business and food and pleasure and things like that. Be interested to push that forward in development as part of the strategic plan too. So that's it for my questions. I have more comments I can do, but I'll yield some time.
Just to touch briefly on your first question, I think we will also start to hear, just like we have experienced a difficult year, our property owners and business owners have also experienced a very difficult year. And I'm sure they have wish lists and requirements that they need to invest back into their properties as well. So as much that we can do to help work that process through, because I'm a really firm believer that our downtown is as charming as it is because of the local investments in those buildings and in those businesses. So as much as we can do to help bridge those gaps and get those people to a point where they can continue to own those businesses and buildings, I think will benefit our organization, because they have really been the backbone of everything that we've done in the last 30 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, I so totally agree with you. So fortunate of the quality of ownership of those buildings and the recognition of those improvements. Yeah, that's well put.
Thank you, Zach. Any other comments?
I would have one brief comment if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Cal.
Yeah, Dave, and actually for both of you, really, I just appreciate the work that you have done. There was a little bit of maybe morale issue, I guess, with some of the transitions at MDA, as you have remarked on. I just wanted to mention, just for the record, I'm not going to go into the specifics of the issue, but we had an issue where a local business owner downtown had some complaints that they had made. And she had reached out to the city and to some others, and Dave came up with a very elegant solution and implemented it very quickly in a way that minimized conflict. And seeing him perform to that level that quickly was really appreciated. And the report that you gave tonight, I think, showed a lot of vision and leadership in a difficult time. So I appreciate your work.
Thank you, Sal.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Zach.
Thank you for sharing, for comments. Thank you for sharing that Oregon Main Street report and that local program evaluation. Those are super helpful. I think my comments on that for the organization would be, I've served on the board for many years, and to speak at some of the problems that have plagued the organization for a few years. I served on it, 3 executive directors ago, and not that long ago. So I love to see where this organization is going. I love to see the stability that Dave and Heather and her board have provided. I think that you guys often phrase things as we got all the pieces and the people on the bus, and then COVID hit. I think we finally got all the pieces on the bus, and we were prepared for COVID finally with stability. I think stability and clarity on mission had long plagued the organization in this interim, and I feel super confident and super pleased with where you guys are at in regards to stability and clarity in mission, and totally love and trust where you guys are headed. I think distilling the report down into two key words would be communication and longevity. I think you guys know that communication is one that you want to work on, and I see it happening more, and I would just hammer that home, right? Transparency and communication for the organization. I think as we've heard the EID come up for renewal, those have been key things that have been talked about. And so I see those in there, and I see you guys doing that going forward, especially with the daily and out when we're out of COVID times, just being a really clear, communicative, long-lasting board is going to be great. I think building code has been a little bit of a boogeyman to some of the owners down there, thinking more about what we were talking about a minute ago. And so I know the organization long has an impact on their members by helping them access information. And if one thing we can do is have a membership meeting with the building official, the boogeyman, put him in the room and let anyone ask any questions or have him talk about Oregon building code. I mean, that would be huge. I know that's one that's come up, and that's one that also lives in the boogeyman lives in the darkness, and you worry about doing anything to your building and anything other than the cover of night because you're worried about the big seismic upgrade or the big elevator you have to do. And I think building code is advancing enough that we're recognizing the priority of old buildings, which is what we have down there, and we're coming up with ways to preserve those while also making big investments in them, which will allow local people to continue to do that. So that would be one thing I hope you guys can take from that, is the city could hopefully get you in tune with that.
Thank you, Zach. Wendy?
Yeah, hi. And thank you guys so much. The report was really eye-opening, especially the part, the pie chart. I was not surprised, but surprised by the number of businesses that said 75% reduction in their business. And I know that a lot of the things that you've done have helped those businesses, which is amazing. Do you have a plan? One of the things, the dining outside that is ending soon, probably made a huge difference for the businesses down there. Do you have anything that's coming in the wake of that might help businesses as they continue to face COVID as that program ends?
So we're watching it really closely. I mean, I almost Google it daily to just kind of see what's going on around the country, so forth. And obviously the biggest issue that we face is weather, right? And we might not be the coldest place, but we get a lot of precipitation. So that, and even watching it this last weekend, it rained out Friday and it was no longer. We're working on an interesting little idea. It's not going to be a savior by any means, but we're talking to you guys about even canopy sidewalk tents that are 10 by 10 that don't impede handicap traffic. You think about those and you go, well, what will that do? But there's those bistro tables outside. Every single table counts. And, we're going to work through that. I'm actually was just looking at some additional ideas. Everything comes down to expense, Wendy, it's like these big tents and so forth that you could look at. They're hugely somewhat cost prohibitive, especially for our local market. But I think we're going to draw on our restaurants too for their ideas, because they've been creative throughout the process. And so I expect to follow up with them in the coming weeks. We're going to do another survey just to get a handle on how it went, number one, and then solicit some thoughts as to we go forward, because as we move into, the colder weather and so forth, if we can do anything to assist them, I know our retailers are very supportive of trying to help them as well, which some of them have had to, go through some tougher times with the street closed. But for the most part, the support is great. Everyone recognizes its importance, that's for sure.
That's great.
We're also working on a retail promotion, essentially going to a 12 weeks of Christmas. So you will actually start seeing that very soon to promote shopping early, some different options, primarily getting some husbands out into the streets prior to December 23rd. So we're working on some of those things with our retailers, and they've been great. They're all on board and ready to hit the ground running with that. So you'll see some of those promotions of 3rd Street is the place to shop for the holidays. So
that's great. Well, thank you for all your creativity and hard work. I think it's made a huge difference, especially facing the numbers that the businesses are facing right now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor. Not to prolong the discussion very much longer, I want to thank Dave. He's as Heather said, the right person to lead the MDA at the right time. Chloe does a ton of great work for the organization. Heather and her board have really done a wonderful job these last 6 months. I would be remiss if I didn't remind people that Jenny Berg was the president of the board who handed the gavel over to Heather sort of at the moment described. And I just want to thank Jenny for her support and her ability to manage the library's function as well as to be a great leader for the Downtown Association, not the least of which was effectively recruiting Mr. Kent Taylor to the board of directors.
Thank you, Jeff. In closing, I know we've spent quite a bit of time this evening listening to the direction and the strategic plan for the MDA, but it has been a while since we've had this opportunity to be before you, and you've heard from the council how much we appreciate and the partnership that we have created. Zach talked about being involved with the MDA. I have to go back a few more years than that, than 1992 through probably 1996, 98, that I was associated with the MDA. But I feel the same type of ownership, the same focus now that with Dave being on board and the ownership of your board members and the members of the Downtown Association. So we thank you. We renew our partnership, and we're looking to, as a partner, work and see some phenomenal things as we pull out of COVID, as we're making funds available for with our care funds and Oregon Business Oregon, and our ability to help many of the businesses downtown weather what we've gone through. So again, thank you. We look forward to many more reports of like activities and success.
Well, thanks for the accolades. I just wanted to say one last thing, and that was, I couldn't have done the last 6 months without this woman next to me. She's the president of the organization. She has been my cheerleader. She's been my rock. She is my Kwan. She's been amazing, especially through some of the difficult times, and that's made it really worthwhile. It's nice to be able to be backed up and supported in that manner. So thank you all. It's been great presenting to you tonight. Please reach out to us. If you want in on the daily or so forth, it's dave@downtownmcminnville.com. It's a pretty simple one, and write it down. Reach out to me and we'll get you on that mailing list, and you'll be informed on what we're doing every week.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. That will take us now to advice and informational items. And so let's have a report from counselors on committee and board assignments. I'll just start across, and let's go with Zach first.
Oh, yes. I was betting I was going to be first. Talk to the most.
Next to me.
Landscape Review Committee had a meeting last week, but it was merely just a meeting it was a quick turnaround meeting to get requested information from the previous meeting from the applicant on some changes. Those changes were made. The Landscape Committee was thrilled and such approved the application over near the animal hospital or whatever, near the bowling alley. MacPac, no meeting since our previous meeting. The next meeting will be the first Thursday in October. The agenda is getting hammered out as we speak, but that one's going full steam. If anyone needs a boost to the morale, that government's doing good work and the people are thrilled to be involved, I encourage you to tune into that one. It's a good monthly reminder for me. Excuse me. McMinnville Community Media, I have an update here, switching devices so I can read my prepared remarks. McMinnville Community Media met last night. They've extended office hours, so they're now open Tuesday through Saturday. There are many producers in this time sharpening their pencils and their creative skills and creating content and filling local programs. They televised live wildfire updates last week. I don't know if anyone was able to tune in, but they kept the news on the wildfires going. And they're working on scheduling candidate forums, either of their own or providing access and more bandwidth to other community engagement groups candidate forums. So they're kind of working the news for local elections. That's my update. Thanks.
Thank you, Zach. Let's move to Kelly.
Okay, visit McMinnville. There were a couple of big items, or what they're considering big projects for this year, since Mini is kind of short supply. One of them is a bike repair station that will be activated. It will provide tools and stuff for people that like to do bicycling. And it's the first one will be in the Granary District, and that's probably the only one that will happen this year. It's a value-added type of thing to say that we actually value cycling in McMinnville, and it's only going to cost us $1,500. So, or that is to say, visit McMinnville $1,500. The other one, keeping in step with Dave's presentation and Heather's, is partnering with the downtown for the holiday, coordinating with brand and design for the work with Dave Rucklos. It's going to be a winter activation, obviously, as they were discussing. It's going to be a Christmassy wonderland. And there will be a lot of work on keeping the branding similar to what Visit McMinnville's using, with emphasis on colors and stuff. The whole idea will be there'll be garland wraps and banners downtown. There will be ways of engaging people, like roasted chestnuts, stands on the streets. And also working with Mac Market to expand goods to go, like goods from McMinnville to go. You can arrange to have gift packages sent to various people in your relatives out in other states, so they can appreciate the beauty of McMinnville. The other meeting I attended today was the Wycop meeting, and just wanted to know that apparently we are getting some more OHA funding to the tune of $275,000 for, to keep the moteling project going through the end of the year. And we're also still looking for more funds from various other areas. But it's, with the moteling project, from what I understand, 75% have now transitioned to permanent housing. So pretty good outcome. A lot of other things going on at Wycop, but I won't trouble you with all of that.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's move over to Adam.
So our September Wycombe board meeting was canceled due to the amount of resources dispatched to fire management operations. So we should resume that in October with a pretty full agenda. And then as mentioned in our level 10 meeting, the airport commission is going to get underway Thursday night on some minimum standards updates, which has been long overdue for the airport, and try and bring an equitable playing field to those minimum standards out there at the airport. So that's exciting news with the airport commission, and that's what I got.
Thank you, Adam. Sal?
Thank you, Mayor. The COGS Executive Committee and Board of Directors has had a couple of meetings. The main focus, and actually we have another meeting tomorrow, the main focus is still the Executive Director search. We will be doing interviews, 3 days of interviews with probably 4 to 6 candidates starting in the next month. So we should have a new executive director, and the COG will be hopefully re-implementing some of the human resources services that have gone away since Sean moved on. So that's it.
Thank you, Sal. Let's go to Remy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The McMinnville Affordable Housing Task Force meets tomorrow at 10 a.m. via Zoom.
Thank you. Let's go to Wendy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have not had a MURAC meeting since our last meeting. It's always the first Wednesday of the month, so I should have a report on that at our next meeting.
Okay. And Wendy, are you at a point right now where we can bring up what the list of adopted level 10 master list looks like so that we might be able to have a motion on that?
Can you say that again, Mr. Mayor? I didn't hear you.
I was wondering if we're to a point right now where we know what that we can adopt the level 10 master issues list, or are we going to need a little more time?
No, I think we're ready. The only thing that...
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and share with us what we've come up with, and then we'll go through and see if we can adopt that formally tonight.
You bet. Okay, Claudia, can you give me permission once more so that I can share that master issues list? Okay. Let me just get it open, and then I'll share when I have it. I want to get it to a size that everybody can see. Okay.
No pressure, just the public.
Everybody waiting. Okay, here it is. Okay, this is the master issues list we came up with today. So do you want me to read them, or do you want to just let everybody read them, or?
Yeah, well, if it looks like we've got tallies, and we've got how the city council creates a structure, a system to effectively address the issues that are not related to the strategic plan and still have maintain a focus on the long-term policy directions established by the strategic plan. And it looks to me that right under that would be how the city council process will restructure to ensure maximum efficiency and city council appropriate participation in addressing topics of concern. Process for new businesses. How does an individual member of the council get on the agenda to discuss appropriately, and then formulate the city council scorecard and how we hold ourselves accountable to those matrix. And then I think we go down number 12 and number 18. How many, Wendy, how many are we going to adopt? Do we take just the top 3, or are we going to go down?
No, I think what the process will be is we'll actually adopt the whole plan,
okay.
The whole master issues list, excuse me. But what we'll do is we'll prioritize discussions for the IDSs based on votes. So, hold on, my dog's making a lot of noise. No. We'll keep the whole issues list, and if priorities change, then people can change their vote over time. But we'll start with the ones that got the most votes first, and then we'll take new votes as we go along.
Thank you, Wendy, for the masterful way that you got us through that this earlier in our level 10 meeting. So I'm going to ask for a motion to formally adopt the City Council level 10 masters issue list as presented during the level 10 meeting that occurred this evening at 5:30. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Zach, and do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Mayor, discussion on the item that we have?
Go ahead.
There was a citizen comment about an observed Excel spreadsheet error. I didn't follow it, but did anyone else follow it, and did it get corrected?
Yes, I corrected it. Yeah. Thank you, Zach.
So before us, we have a motion, and we have by Zach and a second by Kelly. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, signify by saying nay. I show that this passes unanimously 6-0. And again, thank you for the hard work. I mean, this has taken a lot of time to get to this point. Okay, what I would like to do is just do a brief report, and then we'll go to department heads. I just want to share since we've met last, I've had an opportunity to meet the new ownership of the Evergreen Museum and looking at the partnershiping that we look forward to be doing as a city. I've had an opportunity to meet with Dave and the MDA, L'Oreal at the hospital, MEDP, and Wycop, just to have our monthly meetings. I think one of the most satisfying things that I can bring back to you is last Thursday we had an opportunity to meet as the Newburgh-Dundee Bypass committee, and we were told that we now have enough funds to move forward with phase 2 to shovel ready, which means now we can start looking for federal funds as Peter DeFazio and the House put infrastructure together. I'll tell you, this is much earlier than I ever anticipated that may be happening, but we've been able to pull over the unused funds from phase 1, and we're really closing in on that. We also have had some very strong dialogue of what the interchange is going to look like from the fish hook down to Dayton, and we're getting preliminary reports back on that. We're going to be getting preliminary dollars on that. Again, we're looking, even though that phase 2 has shovel ready in a very short period of time, we're still looking at phase to the finish and trying to take a look and see what that's going to look like to get us the whole bypass completed, because that phase 3 is the one that's really going to have a positive impact on McMinnville. So I just I thank the council. I thank Jeff to being able for us to be a leader in those discussions. Kelly's been on that committee, and I've been on that committee, and Sal's been on that committee, but it's a happy moment right now. So I share that with the council. With that being said, let's go ahead and move down to department heads. And so I'm going to start with Amanda first.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report.
Thank you. Chief Scales.
Mr. Mayor, nothing to report other than what I expressed in level 10.
Thank you. Let's go down to Mike Bissett.
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
We'll hear from you a little later. Jennifer?
Mr. Mayor, also quiet in the finance and media court world this last week.
Thank you, Jennifer. Heather?
Sorry, operational error. So I just wanted to let everyone know that due to the hazardous air quality last week and the closure of some of the programs, we are extending the application deadline for the Emergency Business Assistance Grant to this Friday, September 25th. So if people are still considering applying, we encourage you to do so. If you're not sure if you comply with the guidelines, go ahead and apply anyway, and we'll work through that and get back in touch with you.
Thank you, Heather. Let's go to Jenny.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott?
Nothing for the council tonight. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let's go to Claudia. Anything this evening? She has to.
Nothing, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. And I'm going to do I'm going to go to Kaylee because we're going to want to talk a little bit of a report that she has on her DEI. So Kaylee?
Hi there. So as you'll see in your staff report, it's just a brief update on the new initiatives with diversity, equity, and inclusion at the city. In the previous meetings with the council, we've learned that there's really kind of 3 top priorities. One of those is to conduct a mandatory DEI training with all city employees. We have 2 firms that are being considered for providing that training, and we're making a decision hopefully this week on either using one of those or perhaps both in combination to achieve that. We're also making progress on our DEI advisory committee. As you'll see in the staff report, that will be presented to the council at the October 13th council meeting. Per city charter, a official advisory committee should come to the council as an ordinance. So we will be bringing that to you at that point. And then we're also going to be looking at conducting a diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment that will inform that draft plan that you all have provided feedback on, and then also just inform the city's ongoing work within this topic. So just making sure that you know kind of where we're at on this work, and we'll be making a decision on the trainers, and if one of those firms will be retained by the city to handle the audit process, and perhaps for further consultation throughout kind of as we sort of get things more off the ground. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer?
Let's open it up for Kylie. Go ahead, Zach.
Not a specific question, just to thank you both for all this work you've done getting to this point, but as well for you and Jeff for the separate call in which you guys held my hand and didn't tell me I'm an idiot, but walked me through and let me figure out where we were around my questions to get what we were going to get started on now versus what we were going to keep in draft form and continue to work on and marry the twain of those processes. So thank you for this. Looking forward to getting this going as part of the, the conversations that came out around the budget process and how we're going to make meaningful impact on the city's processes. I also really love the way we're tying this into the strategic report. Oh man, too many words. Strategic
plan.
Thank you. Strategic plan, engagement and inclusion, creating another board. So often many councilors talk about, I came from budget committee, I came from planning commission, I came from this. I can't wait until in hopefully a few short years, we have people that came from the DEI charter who actually, are well equipped to deal with emotional stress. And I am not one of those people. So I look forward to that future and many other impacts that this group will have. So good work and thank you.
Thank you. In a HR fashion, city councilor handholding would be considered other duties as assigned.
And then Kylie and Jeff, I just wanted, from my perspective, this is something that's been dear to my heart for a while, and to see where we're at today and that we're catching up very quickly to other communities, but I think we're doing it in the right way. I think we're really being thoughtful, and I'm so excited to take a look at that advisory committee. And I think Zach hit the nail right on the head when he talked about that needs to be a path to being able to get to involvement at the city council level. And, our Lieutenex group that, is about a third of our population. I want to see some participation and some training and some leadership going from that. So again, thank you. And council, thank you for your thoughtful reply to that report so we could move forward. Again, thank you. And we'll end up with Jeff. Jeff, any report for us this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. Briefly, I would never call Zach an idiot, and none of his questions were even remotely idiotic. They were good questions, and it really helped Kylie and I think, present a better product to you and to the community. So thanks, Zach. I mentioned earlier during the level 10, but for the public record on this call, I'll remind folks I'll be participating in the ICMA virtual conference for the rest of the week, pretty much full-time Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and about into midday Saturday. So I won't have much time to engage in email exchanges. I do have my cell phone if anybody needs me. Heather mentioned the hazardous air conditions of the previous week and a half. And I just want to say that I know it was difficult on a lot of people in this community and in this organization. We had employees who had to work in very difficult circumstances. We had employees that weren't allowed to work in those circumstances. We had employees who had to sort of pick up their office and move home to work again. Folks handled it incredibly well in a gracious fashion and were patient, waiting each night for sort of the weather and the smoke report to decide if they were going to go back to semblance of normal. So I just want to express my appreciation, not just for the executive team, but for all the city employees and the patients of the community as we worked our way through that historically terrible stretch of air quality in the community. Thank you, Mayor.
Excuse me, I need to unmute myself. Thank you, Jeff, for that report. That takes us now to item number 6, our consent agenda this evening. On that agenda, we have minutes from January 22nd, our work session, January 28th, our regular council meeting, and we have a resolution 2020-59, which is a resolution to expanding the city's declaration of state of emergency that was expressed in resolution 2020-18. Is there anyone on the council that would like to take any item off the consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, then I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Kelly and seconded by Wendy. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by saying nay? The consent agenda this evening passes 6-0. Thank you. That takes us to the resolution that we have this evening. It's resolution 2020-58, a resolution awarding the contract for the apron and the taxi lane rehabilitation project number 2017-10. Mike, it's good to see you this evening. If you could present that to us, and the report's in our packet.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I'll refer you to the brief staff report that is in your packet, as well as the draft resolution and the bid award recommendation from the city's apron project consultant, Century West Engineering. The bids for this project were actually opened in May and have been held since that time while we were waiting for confirmation from the FAA that we'd be awarded a construction grant for the project. As you know, at your last meeting, you approved a resolution authorizing the city manager and city attorney to sign the grant that we've been notified that we are receiving. Actually, our last correspondence is the grant will arrive tomorrow and it needs to be signed by Thursday. So I'll be bugging Jeff and Amanda while they're in their conference to make sure we get that done. But K&E Excavating was the lowest responsible and responsive bidder with a bid amount of $1,272,382. Unless there are any questions, I would recommend that the council award the bid per the attached resolution.
Mike, is K&E doing our work on Old Sheridan Road?
Indeed, they are, and they did the water line project for McMinnville Water and Light that did the intertie to Lafayette as well.
Right, and both of those projects seem to be going very well. I know Water and Light, they were ahead of time and under budget, and I have an opportunity to go down and look at Old Sheridan Road at least on a weekly basis, and I'm just amazed at their work. So any other questions for Mike as it relates to the resolution in front of us?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead, Adam.
Mike, on line 18 and 19 of the bids where they're putting them together, it looks like K&E just kind of put $1 in there and didn't really account for any expenses on that. Or when the engineer's estimate, they had real numbers in there. Is that just them omitting that from the project, or they just wrap those costs into something else?
Well, I wouldn't claim to be fully versed in the minds of bid estimators. Each contractor looks at the bid items differently, but certainly that work will be part of the project and will be ensuring that it gets done at the prices that they've provided. So you'll see all sorts of strange things with bids, particularly bids of large amounts where the contractors are placing profit and overhead in some lines and not in others. And certainly that bid item did not raise any concerns with the FAA or with our consultant, Century West Engineering.
Okay, but just to clarify, I won't leave us open-ended for like a change order or anything like that. They're bound to the price that they're quoting.
That's correct. And if we end up with more quantity than we've listed, we'll get it at that low price. So you're absolutely correct. They will be doing that work at the price they've quoted.
Okay, with no other questions, if nobody else has any questions, I'd like to make a motion.
Zach has a question. We'll come back to you for the motion, Adam.
Thank you.
Nice try, Garvin. Mike, thank you for this. One question, given the time cleavage between the bid open date and the award date, May to whatever, September now, has K&E, at least, if we're looking at awarding them the bid, confirmed that this is the price they can continue to hold at those rates?
Indeed, they have. In fact, when the bids were opened and reviewed and we made our bid award recommendation and had discussions with FAA on how long it would be before they would be able to award a grant, we confirmed with K&E, and they, in writing, have extended their bid prices through the end of September. So the granting of the resolution this evening will take care of that item. If for some reason we were postponing the bid award this evening, I'd need to get back in touch with them to see if they'd do an extension.
That's fantastic. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mike? Hearing none, then I'll turn it over to Councilor Garvin to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the bid as presented.
Okay, and a second.
I'll second that.
So Adam made the motion and Zach seconded that. And this is resolution 2020-58. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please signify by saying nay. The resolution 2020-58 passes unanimously 6-0. That is the conclusion of our city council this evening. We're going to be going into a urban renewal agency meeting, and then after the agency meeting, then we're going to be going into executive session. So I go ahead and adjourn the city council with my gavel, okay? And I will open and call to order the City Council Urban Renewal Agency meeting, the 22nd day of September 2020. I'll call us to order, and I'll ask the city recorder to poll the council for a roll.
Councilor Drapkin?
Here.
Councilor Garvin?
Here.
Councilor Geary?
Here.
Councilor Stassen?
Here.
Councilor Peralta?
Here.
Council President Minke?
Here.
And Chair Hill?
Here. And so the first item on our agenda this evening is the consent agenda, which considers the minutes from our December 10th, 2019 Urban Renewal Agency and the January 14th, 2020 Urban Renewal Agency meeting. Is there any council that would like to take any item off of our consent agenda? Hearing none, then I will take a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Council President Menke and seconded by Councilor Peralta. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, signify by saying nay. The consent agenda passes unanimously 6-0. That's going to take us to Resolution 2020-3, a resolution appointing members to the McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee. So I'll call on our Planning Director, Heather Richards, to present. Heather?
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. So in your role as the Urban Renewal Board members, there are 2 vacancies currently on MURAC, and a resolution in front of you tonight to recommend appointments to them. The vacancies are due to resignations that occurred with one person moving out of town and another person who was not able to serve anymore due to personal reasons. The vacancies is 1 business representative with a term that expires on December 31, 2022, and the other is a resident of the city of McMinnville with a term that expires on December 31, 2021. We advertised the vacancies in the newspaper as well as on social media, received 4 applications, and Mayor Scott Hill and MURAC Chair Walt Gall interviewed all 4 applicants and brought their recommendation to MURAC for consideration at the last MURAC meeting. MURAC agreed with the recommendation, and it's represented in front of you tonight with the resolution. It's to appoint Mike Morris as the business representative with a expiration date of December 31, 2022, and to appoint Lisa Poole as the resident with an expiration date of December 31, 2021.
And so in front of us, we have Resolution 2020-03. Any questions for Heather on those appointees? I can tell you, Walt and I had a very difficult time. I mean, all 4 candidates were well qualified, had a great desire to participate in what I call this very unique committee as it's dealing with our urban renewal funds, and they get to spend money, and that's a fun committee to be a part of, and under the direction of Heather. So I will take a motion to approve Resolution 2020-3.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Sal and seconded by Zach. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying nay. And so Resolution 2020-3 passes unanimously 6-0. And that concludes the business of our Urban Renewal Agency meeting this evening. Again, I'll take my gavel and I will close the meeting. Okay. That now takes us to this City of McMinnville executive session. This is the 22nd.
Mayor.
What's that?
It's a different Zoom link for the executive session.
Okay, so we will get off and come back on for the executive session. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening, and keep safe in your comings and goings. Thanks, everyone.